please visit my website, programtokill.net. Go to plans and prices for even more exclusive information. You can also support me now on Patreon. Add me on TikTok. And leave a like and comment.
In America. But sometimes ugly things happen in beautiful places. And a monstrous crime happened right here in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. It was the only homicide to happen in Boulder in all of 1996. But the savage nature of the crime, the age and innocence of the victim, forever captured in haunting home movies, and the unusual behavior of her parents have made the JonBenet murder mystery one of the most eagerly followed crime stories in many, many years. As you can see, we have brought together dozens of Boulder residents to talk about the family and about the tiny beauty queen. Many of them knew her personally. Experts are also here to discuss and debate, perhaps bitterly, the facts and circumstances of this troubling case. For example, Dr. Cyril Wecht, the noted forensic pathologist for Allegheny County, that's Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Is it not a fact, Dr. Wecht, that as you sit there today, you believe that the partial autopsy that you have seen, as we all have, indicates that there was a prior history of sexual abuse, that is, sexual abuse other than the awful assault that ended the 6-year-old's life?
Yes, on at least one other occasion, Geraldo. I cannot say how many, and if there had been more than one, but definitely one, a matter of a few to several days minimum prior to the night of this young girl's murder.
Is it not a fact also, Cyril, that you believe the evidence, as it is known to us, points inexorably at the family, at the father as the prime suspect?
Yes, as a coroner, as well as a forensic pathologist who has worked with homicide investigators and been involved in cases and read reports, and talking with many people, including homicide detectives, former FBI people, just this past week at the American Academy of Forensic Sciences and so on, there's no doubt that one has to start with the family. And if there is evidence of sexual assault, and if there in fact is semen, obviously that would tend to exclude a woman, or certainly a woman by herself.
Meaning JonBenet Ramsey? Cyril, say it.
Well, I do not know all the men who were there. I understand that Mr. Ramsey was there. I have not heard of any other men being there. I have only heard from the news media reports that the half-brother has now been excluded geographically, that his mother and others have signed an affidavit, I have heard, that he was in Atlanta or elsewhere. If Mr. Ramsey was the only man in the house, then certainly he has to be considered as the primary suspect.
Larry Posner, what's wrong with Cyril's analysis?
Well, Dr. Wecht is never one to let a lack of facts get in the way of his giving an opinion. And that's what we have here today. He's got a lack of facts. He's dealing without a full autopsy. He knows it's a crippled report. He's missing the photos. He's missing the slides. He did none of the pathology. He has not talked to the pathologist. Yet here he is pointing a finger. It's pretty sad. And it's not science. It's speculation.
Geraldo, the show is not about me, but I am sick and tired of Mr. Posner's ad hominem attacks on me, okay? What I have forgotten about forensic pathology, he will never know. I have done dozens of autopsies on children who have been murdered. I have done hundreds of autopsies on people who have been sexually assaulted and raped, and I have done 13,000 autopsies myself. Yes, I have the redacted autopsy report, and I can go with that. And I have discussed this with all kinds of people, including forensic psychiatrists, forensic pathologists, homicide investigators, FBI people, criminalists, other pathologists, and I have yet to find one person from the entire meeting in New York City, not that I surveyed all 1,500 who were present at the meeting, found one who disagreed with the basic premises here. The fact of the matter is that what we have here in the redacted autopsy report, and if Mr. Posner has trouble with that, he should talk to the coroner, Dr. Meyer. I did not release it. and he should discuss the findings with Dr. Meyer and contest them with him. The findings that Dr. Meyer sets forth show chronic inflammation in all sections that he took from the vaginal wall, shows focal superficial erosion at the junction of the hymen within the vaginal wall, and some foreign body material. There is no evidence of infection. There is no evidence of trauma. And that means to me that the chronic inflammation interstitially, that means within the wall, came from the intrusion of a foreign body at some time in the past. Chronic means that we go back 48 to 72 hours. I know what is there. I can interpret this. And there is no other plausible explanation for these microscopic findings in this little girl's vagina other than what I have set forth.
You know, Geraldo, I haven't done 13,000 autopsies, but I've got 4 daughters, and I have changed 13,000 diapers. And I will tell you, vaginal infections come from dozens of sources. You've got a lot of moms in the room. You ask them, how many of them have had a daughter with a vaginal infection because she didn't wipe properly? How many of us have been told by our pediatrician, don't give your kids bubble baths, it leads to vaginal infections? How many of us have taken our kids to pediatricians because they had a vaginal infection, and this man wants to say, some doc finds a vaginal infection, all of us should be under suspicion for having sex with our kids. That's disgusting, and it's not science, it's speculation.
The point is, Geraldo, that there is no evidence of infection. Mr. Posner, and I can understand that he is, after all, just a lawyer and not a scientist, does not understand the difference between inflammation and infection. There is a difference. Inflammation can occur without infection. And there is no evidence of infection here, either chronic or acute. There is evidence of chronic inflammation. And then we have the evidence of the fresh red blood cells, which of course takes us to the night. And when you put all of this together and you deal with other circumstances of the case, which are important, very important, obviously, then I'm certain that the scenario which I have suggested and by which I stand firm will prove to be the correct one.
State your scenario.
The scenario is that this was not the first time that this kind of sexual abuse had been perpetrated on this little girl. This was not a brutal, wanton murder. The absence of injuries tells me a great deal. For example, in the neck. While we do not have a description of the neck externally, I have previously seen pictures with the ligature that was around her neck. The dissection of the neck, which Dr. Meyer undertook meticulously, layer by layer, reveals not even as much as one pinpoint hemorrhage. An adult person, man, woman, or anybody, taking the neck of a 6-year-old girl would crack it like a chicken. Then I also want to point out that the homicide scene is a contrived one, and everybody that I've spoken to agrees on that. The head injuries then were inflicted in order to make it appear to be a brutal murder.
You think it was an accidental death?
Yes, in that sense, leaving aside what a judge and jury will ultimately find, do I believe it was accidental in the sense that it was not an intent initially to kill this girl? Yes, very much so. And with regard to the sexual business too, chronic, acute, the fact of the matter is there is no evidence of a brutal sexual assault on this girl. It was a careful situation so as not to leave any injuries. All of these things are there.
Okay, Larry, final rebuttal, then I'll introduce the panel.
Well, the people of Boulder should rest easy. Although our police department haven't been able to solve it, some expert comes in from out of town with 1/100th of the evidence available to our people. He reads minds. He tells us exactly what happened. He refers, Geraldo, to evidence none of us have heard of. He talks about the semen. What semen? Nobody's released a report saying they have found semen. This guy can take the smallest thing and weave it into an opinion. Why are they not willing to wait until law enforcement solves this case? Why do we have to speculate?
Let me indicate to you that I have just gotten off the phone, ladies and gentlemen, with Pat Corton. He is the spokesman for the Ramsey family. I think that what he has told me is news. It was news to me. I think it will be news to you. Before I introduce the rest of our fine panel and read you this statement from the Ramseys themselves, let me take our first break. We are on location in Boulder, Colorado. We are investigating the facts and circumstances of the JonBenet Ramsey murder. This is part one. Tomorrow we are talking to the people. Jane Stobie is another former employee of John Ramsey's. Jane has an entirely different take. I want to get her initial response to what we've seen so far in the program, and then we'll continue on with more from JonBenet's grandmom and from our guests who join us via satellite from Colorado. Jane, why do you think this couple guilty?
I don't know that they're guilty, but I believe that there's the potential there. I think one of the things that surprised me the most about this case was when I found out there'd been a murder, I wasn't surprised. And usually when you hear that there's a murder of someone you know, I mean, there's shock, et cetera, but I wasn't surprised.
Were you surprised when the family was fingered as the potential suspects?
No.
Why not?
This is hard for me to talk about, but I think it's also very important to talk about it. I have a different perspective. I observed some things when I was working for the company, and specifically when Nedra Paul and Paulette Davis, Patsy's sister, were working for me in Atlanta, that led me to suspect that there was a lot of dysfunction occurring in this family that potentially could lead to something that would be very bad.
Examples?
Well, I think one of the examples was one of the employees told me that Nedra and Paulette had been talking to the other employees about the size of John Ramsey's son's private parts, and were almost acting like it was a badge of honor. And I don't think that's appropriate.
The 10-year-old kid's penis size?
Yes. And I thought that was very bizarre and inappropriate. And on another occasion, Paulette Davis talked to a black gentleman who used to work for the company, and I was there to personally witness this, and made some comments about oral sex that, as a manager, I was shocked. Number one, I thought maybe, you know, there would be could be a lawsuit, et cetera, but it was just very inappropriate behavior. And I also noticed that there was a lot of enmeshment between the daughters and Nedra. I believe that Nedra called a lot of the shots. And
that little old lady, the grandma?
Well, I think that we all have a public persona, and then there's another persona people have. And my experience was that there was another side to these folks.
We begin the program today with our exclusive interview with JonBenet's grandma, Nedra Paugh. This is Nedra Paugh's first television interview since the murder of her beloved granddaughter. In this segment, and I warn you, it is on Hi-8 home video. It's not a big-time video production, but it is an exclusive, packed with substance nevertheless. In this first part of the interview, Patsy's mom talks about her utter devastation over the murder, the brutal murder of her granddaughter, and the child's alleged sexual abuse. Here's Nedra Paugh.
Well, every day was Christmas to JonBenet. She had a wonderful life. I often looked at her, and Burke as well, and thought that how wonderful life had been to them. They had a wonderful mother and father who loved them. And they had every possibility to be the very best they could be. And JonBenet always said that she wanted to be the very best she could be. I think probably she heard that in pageant somewhere. And I often thought, what a beautiful life. She was beautiful. She was gracious, intelligent, loved life, loved her friends, loved animals. She loved everything. And that was taken away. I think in the night, she slept. I was awakened the next morning. The telephone call said she had been kidnapped. And I knew I'd never see her again. No, that she had been molested to some extent, hit on the head. I didn't know that, and somehow I'd hoped she had died very quickly, and I think that she did. I really do believe that whoever has done this strangled her, because I'm sure she put up a tremendous fight. Although she had tape on her mouth, she couldn't scream, but I know she had fought. She was very artistic, like her mother, and she would say that she wanted to be an artist. And then maybe the next day she might want to be an ice skater. She thought that was beautiful, and she wanted to do that. She thought she might like to ride horses. And she thought that one day, she said she wanted to be a veterinarian. And I'm sure that she could have been very successful in any one of those things. But now she is in heaven. And I'm sure she's a very good angel. To think that a perfectly healthy, happy child sleeping in her bed on Christmas, dreaming, as the story says, of sugar plum bugs. And someone to kill and murder, molest. And then, if that isn't enough, strike her on the head or something. It's just more, because if that hadn't happened, she would be well alive, making a contribution to the world. She was an angel. She had not reached the age of accountability, so there was no doubt that he could say that, even though he never knew her.
She knew that you loved her so much.
Oh yes, she knew we all loved her. And someone has destroyed.
She only talks about her love for this beautiful child. She doesn't say, I mean, where are the killers? Why don't they find them? Why didn't they follow this lead? Look at this thing. This is not a possibility. This is an untruth. Why don't they say that this? Nothing. Nobody touches that. Nobody ever does.